All right, and we are live. Hello, everybody. My name is Morgin Madison, and with me here today is iamcyclo, the visual mastermind behind my latest album, Living the Phantasm, out now everywhere on Mousetrap. He is also, you might know him as the visual mastermind behind Atlas's albums on Mousetrap, and he has much more coming in the future with others. But today we're here to talk about the music and the visuals. All things Living the Phantasm, the new album from myself, with a ton of awesome, dynamic, living visual worlds from iamcyclo. Right after this video, we're going to roll you straight into the album Continuous Mix, which is built from the ground up by Thomas in just an hour-long visual movie. So enjoy that. But before that, I have a doc here full of questions from people that I was sent. So we're going to dive right in. And the first one here we got is, how did you guys meet? And how did your friendship evolve into making an entire album's worth of audio-visual material for Morgan's debut LP with Mousetrap? You want to go first, Thomas, or should I go first?
Why don't you start it off about how I reached out to you, and then we'll take it from there.
Did you reach out to me?
Yeah, when you dropped that last track on Mousetrap,
I thought I
you
reached out to you. Well, however it worked, it was so cool. Yeah, so what happened was I had seen a lot of what Thomas was doing with Atlas's work on the album Out Here with You, and I remember being like totally blown away by just like, it wasn't just the quality of the visual, but it was more of like his sense of like place and the tangibility of the artwork and how it relates to the music. So I was super impressed already with that when I put out my Some Nights EP back in November. So I think, yeah, either he reached out to me or I reached out to him, and we just started talking about music that we were into. And he asked me, I think, are you working on anything? And at the time, I was like kind of down in the dumps. I was like, hey, I have this album, but I don't think anyone will sign it. So, here it is. We're going to send it to Mousetrap to see what happens. And if they say yes or whatever, like if you want to do stuff for it, like let me know. But basically, like not too much hope. And so I sent the album to Thomas. And Thomas, what was the vibe?
yeah, we Morgan sent me the album, and I was just like, first of all, I was just really stoked on his music before this. Like, definitely, feel that progressive vibe in his music, and that's like one of my favorite, types of electronic that I love. And so he sent me the album, and I was just like, I remember I played it through once, and I immediately started it over. And as I was listening to it the second time, I was just like, holy shit, we have something awesome here. And I was like, I could see the potential of what we could do together with his sound and my visuals. And so I just hit him back, and I was like, yeah, we got to do something with this. There's something special here, and I want to help contribute to this project. And so that's kind of how we started working together, just like very natural from a love of music and just all things awesome. I think we both just vibed on that same level of like, let's do something rad together, and let's do something bigger than one person can do.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. It was kind of wild too. You know, I remember like constructing the album as just like a super raw sort of like audio journey. There's stuff on there that's kind of like, technically speaking, there's electro house next to like ambient on the album, and I didn't think anyone was gonna get it. But what was cool was Thomas was like right away. It was just like, okay, like I understand what's going on here, like, and I think at one point you were like, dude, I need to like work this because I think I can do something here visually that's like that hasn't been done before, which I'm all for, and yeah, that's kind of how it came about. And we even started sending like, I know a lot of Mousetrap fans have picked up on this already, but a lot of the inspiration behind the album is like era specific sort of progressive stuff. And I like that whole 2010 era through like 2013. And I was telling Thomas that, and like I remember like I was sending the messages, and Thomas was like, "Oh, dude, this like sounds directly from like like this from this era of like that specific era of EDM, and I was like, oh my god, like holy crap, like we gotta like we have to do this. Um,
Yeah, I remember like when we were first started talking about like music and like some of the stuff that we really vibed on. Like one of my favorite albums, is like Dead Mouse's what is it, self-titled, and with Brazil and
yeah, random album title,
Random
random album
Album
title,
title. Yeah,
yeah.
so I was like messaging Morgan about like how much I love that album. Like I've listened to it hundreds and hundreds of times. And it was like that was like a mutual connection. We were just like, oh yeah, we love this.
Yeah, I mean, that's like one of the original inspirations, you know? That's where it all goes back to for me in terms of sound is like 2008 to 2010-ish, and like Thomas was all over it. Then we started sending each other like other modern music, like Yado stuff and, you know, all the new stuff that was dropping. Like I think we were both super into that. What was that Christoph record that dropped?
Oh yeah,
Um,
Christoph's with Artec,
The World
uh,
You See, I think it's called.
yeah,
Yeah.
World TV, and then definitely a lot of the new Joseph Ray stuff. That was like one of the big inspirations when we were
Yeah.
listening to music and passing music back and forth of like stuff we were vibing on.
Yeah, dude, the new Joseph Show is so good. I kind of what the stuff we're talking about kind of leads into the next question. Morgan, what's the meaning behind this album? How did you decide it was time for a full length album? Um, you know, I really didn't decide. I'd hit a low point where was just shoving out tons of singles last summer, which is totally fine. Um, but like I started, there wasn't any end in sight to COVID, and I started to realize like, you know, crap. If the industry is this volatile, then how volatile are my dreams? You know. So there came a point probably last August where I was like, okay, like I might be done. I might really be done here, and sort of trying mentally grasping the fact that there might be nothing I can do, and the music industry is collapsing, and me by extension for sure. Like I thought to myself, well, why hold anything back? And then there was like this huge streak of creativity, and the album came out of me between like August and November/December, which was really fast. And that's why like when Thomas and I first talked, the album was so raw; it was still in its demo state when I sent it to him, and yeah, it was just like it was a super raw, fast process, and yeah. Sorry guys, I kind of got off track there, but the meaning behind the album basically is the definition of a phantasm is like uh, the illusory likeness of something, and I think everybody went through a lot of that last year, where it's like it felt like living in some weird alternative reality. Um, and so that's kind of how it came about, the Phantasm project. It's a bit of a ramble there, but I didn't decide it was time for full length. It just kind of happened, and luckily, you know, Thomas came into my life and saved the day. Um, and we'll talk about There's the next question is about visual style, and how you arrived at that, Thomas. But I think you know before Thomas came in, it was things were kind of set up. Like there were some hints as to where he could go, but I couldn't imagine what he would do. And so yeah, the third question is the visual style of this album is extremely unique. How did you guys arrive at this art direction for the project? Thomas, you wanna
Yeah,
go?
yeah. So like when we started progressing forward after we both realized like, okay, we want to do something with this, I was like, well, we need to set up like a visual language that this album can live inside of. It's like, to me, the album it feels like you're inside of a world that is its own, that is the phantasm, that we're living inside of. And when we first started going back and forth, I asked, I thought the best place for us to start was really like, let's just go on the internet and let's find inspirations of visual stuff that me and Morgan both liked. And so we both put together a little bit of a mood board of like some stuff that was inspired by the visuals that we could see inspired from the album. And it was funny because when we sent them to each other, there was like images on the mood board that were the exact same between the two.
Yeah,
It's like out of the whole internet is like pretty insane that we came on the same images of inspiration. But
it's unbelievable.
it definitely, that was the point where I was like, okay, well, we're on the same page here because we're already like pulling the same references. And so, I really wanted to go with something that was very minimal in design, but very striking in color and very bright and vibrant, like the music is itself. But I really wanted the visuals to like be minimal at heart. That's why we try to keep a lot of them like very simple geometric shapes, very simple patterns, that were, lit very vibrantly, that came to life with sound. That's kind of like where I landed on what we should be doing for the visuals for it.
Yeah, honestly, I was pretty blown away because if you look back at previous covers I'd used, they were kind of like these like more flat geometric pieces, and like what Thomas did was he went in and he was like, okay, the music's like pretty clean, atmospheric, and like there are all these qualities to it, but like how do I visually like blow them up? And I still remember like the first four pieces he sent me. I was like, okay, like I've literally never seen like visuals like this. So it was just so cool because I had a lot of ideas in my head like for previous album artworks that are just like more like 2D versions of this kind of stuff. But after he started jamming on it, like there were a couple ideas he sent over. I was just like, okay, like I think we have like you know, there was you sent over some stuff. It was like we had like the glass shaped ones, and then there were like we had like the ones that collapse on themselves, and then there became these like different categories of visuals, and like you could align them with like different types of tracks and different types of vibes, and it was just like so amazing. But yeah, I'd say we came about it super organically for sure. And that's all Thomas too. Like he took the inspiration of what was there and made it into something that is what it is today. So
Yeah, I mean, I think like especially with this album, it was like, with when I work with Atlas, a lot of the times I'm trying to create like a lot of these big, vast nature scenes, these like stuff that is inspired by the real world, but is like in another planet that you would almost live inside of. But for Morgan's music, I really wanted to like explore the other stuff that I find like huge inspiration, which is like geometry and like strong geometric patterns. Have always been inspired by those. Like a lot of my previous work that I've done, like art installations, have all been like very geometric in design. And I'm like a huge fan of like LED lights, like anything with some LEDs and put some rainbow colors in it. It's like
yeah,
I'm stoked. I'm ready. I'm like, I'm all about it. And so definitely wanted to try to explore that with Morgan's music because it seemed so natural to like bring those visuals to his sound.
yeah. No, you're spot on. I think the cool part was it fits so organically with a lot of our inspirations too. Like there was a lot of talk of like Eric Prydz going around, and like if you look at any of his stuff, like the visuals are simultaneously dark yet very vibrant. You know, like a lot of the time, and they're like very specific, and the focus is really specific on like shapes and everything. And
And another thing is like I really was thinking about like long term. Like I wanted to build something that would look timeless that we could use like live in performances and like they still would hold up because of like the way that we built them. So like a lot of the planning I did and a lot of the way I built the visuals was trying to think ahead to, yeah, we're not playing shows right now, but when we go back to playing shows, me and Morgan hope that we can bring this live experience to people. And so that's why I was like, got to make sure I plan this accordingly so that way it saves us time in the long run.
yeah, no, and you did too, because like I remember we were talking early on. You were like, oh man, I can actually just zoom in on like one part of this, and it's still morphing at like the same quality. It was like mind blowing. Um, And yeah, there's like other stuff that happened too. Like there were some visuals that we only developed like basically at the 11th hour, or and Thomas was just like, yeah, man. So I learned a new technique, and I was like, okay. And he like sent me like the last three artworks, and I was like, oh my god, dude! Like these are like better than the first like nine. Um,
It was kind of cool because the project just kept evolving as we worked on it more. It's like the visuals became stronger and we made, good decisions of like where to place with certain tracks. And I think
yeah,
up to the very end, we just kept improving the project.
yeah, dude, it was really amazing. because I was trying to finish like the masters like to a T as well, like as you were doing, because you had to basically jam on the demo version of the album like to make the visuals and everything.
Yeah.
Um, anyway, yeah, we gotta get another question in here from somebody. iamcyclo. What software did you use to create all these visuals, and the visuals you have done for other artists such as Atlas? What was your process like for creating a piece for Living the Phantasm from the ground up? That's a lot there. Why don't we
Yeah.
start with like the software for like what's your setup looking like?
Totally. So, all of, my main software that I build a lot of my visuals, all my 3D stuff is all done in Cinema 4D. And then I'm rendering everything out with Octane Render Engine. So that allows me to render everything live on my GPU. So I getting pretty decent quality, like pretty fast render times with the setup that I have. My machine has like two GPUs inside of it. Um, but it was interesting because when I built these visuals, I actually every visual was had two renders that were done for it.
Oh
So I
yeah.
built like a black version that had no LED lights inside of the visual. And then I built another version that was like that either had the glass materials or it had the bright LED lights inside of the render. So what the reason that I built it this way was like for a couple of reasons. Like one was really because like Morgan mentioned, he was still working on finishing the tracks. So I knew that I needed to have the flexibility to right up to the last hour be able to like finish these visuals out, but not having the final music. So I needed to be able to animate the lights in 2D so that I could save myself render time on the 3D side. So that's why I built all of the visuals in two sets like that. So basically, there's 12 tracks, but really there was 24 videos that I had to render out for all of these visuals that we did. But this also helped set us up for, like I was mentioning, for building stuff for live, because now that I have it set up this way, we can use these live, and no matter how the track gets changed, tempo, anything, we can always sync back up to it because of building it with two sets. So that was like another big reason why I built it the way I built it.
Yeah, yeah, it's absolutely genius. By the way, because I remember asking you, I was like, how do I format this? Do you want like BPM, or are we gonna react it directly to sound and like all this other stuff? And you're like, oh no, don't worry about this and this. Like, I'm doing two different things, and it ended up being perfect for the continuous mix that you guys are gonna see because like there's like a every song in the mix is like shifting BPMs like throughout, and it'll like go up and down and stuff. And Thomas was able to like seamlessly do it, like not a problem. So it's um,
Yeah, so it's just like, making sure to plan ahead for that. And then, sort of that just comes from my experience of working on a lot of visuals, working a lot on animations, like just little tips and tricks I know of like that can save me render time. So that way I can be flexible and like, reach deadlines and all of that. It's like, it's no small feat to render out an hour of 3D content. So you definitely have to find the shortcuts in doing that process so that you can manage your time effectively.
yeah, I think a lot of designers are gonna find a lot of inspiration with you too, because that just takes a lot, like to be able to do that correctly. Not to
Yeah.
mention you were literally timely the entire time. So yeah. They also asked, what was your process like for creating a piece for Living the Phantasm from the ground up? I guess we already talked about that, but I mean, did you have like a specific like like rule set or like something you knew you were gonna do every time you created a new piece, or was it just like geometric and like lighting?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it was like when I was sat down to approach a new piece, the first thing I would do is like listen to the track that I wanted to make a piece for, and I would, put the album on and I would just jam for a little bit, playing around with like materials because like I set the materials that we were going to use pretty early on. So then I had a tool set that of these materials and this lighting setup that I knew we were going to use in these pieces. So when I would start playing around, I would just start slapping shapes together and like doing some tips that I knew from previous experiences on them, and then trying out the materials and seeing like, okay, well, I know that this could work with this object, but this object we should use non-glass materials on it, and we should approach it a different way. Um, and then it was really trying to think about the whole album as a whole, because like I didn't want just every piece to be the exact same animation style. I wanted to be varied across all 12 of them, of like how objects were moving, what we were animating in them. That way there was like a good variety, just like there is in the album sonically. And so I definitely was using those rules that I set up at the beginning to approach every piece that I built from there.
Yeah, and it really shows too, because I think like a lot of the visuals, just like a lot of the songs, like despite their enormous differences in vibe, also carry like the same DNA, which is just really hard to do. So I mean, props to you for being able to pull that off, because I thought for sure, like making the album too, I was just like, wow, this is a mess. Um, like this is never gonna work. Uh, so yeah, really inspiring, man. I think let's get some more. Let's get some more questions in here. There's another one on the doc. Call says, Morgan, is the final result of the album's art direction exactly what you envisioned when making the music, or is it something entirely new? I think what it is it's like exactly what I had dreamt of, just like better. I just don't know, like if you guys go on Spotify or you watch the continuous mix you're about to see, and you watch the way that the music is paired to the visuals, it's like honestly like it fits so well. I'd always thought maybe there was going to be like, I always thought it was going to be clean sort of geometric stuff, because that's like what I'm all about, and I tried to do it by myself for years. So but yeah, Thomas definitely just took it to the next level. So I'd say it's what I had it took what I had hoped it would be and like improved on it, is what I would say. Um, but yeah, and I don't think at the end of the day when you do an album like, or a project of this magnitude, I think you should get out of your comfort zone, and it should be taking risks, and it should be trusting other people to do a good job, and that's what Thomas did. And I'm super thankful for it, and I'm really proud of what came out. I think I would stand by that till the end of my life. That album, I absolutely love it. Okay, so all right, last question on the doc here says, will you guys be working together again in the future? If so, what are some new directions or ideas you'd like to explore with your respective skill sets? That's a good question. Um, I would say when I made the Living the Phantasm album, I had enough demos for like 2 or 3 albums, and then went through and sort of sequenced this one in a way that fit and worked. So there's a lot more music to be worked on that's like in the same vein. And Thomas and I have talked a lot about like how we could grow things, what that would look like. Obviously, like the visuals that are currently made for the album, as you'll see in the continuous mix that's gonna play, are like scaled for live. And that's not even the beginning of what Thomas can do either in terms of like visual aesthetic. Like he can take specific parts of those, zoom in on parts that are morphing like really extremely, and make bits out of those. So like we're really excited to see what comes. And to be honest, Thomas, you continue here in a sec. It's just like at the end of the album, it was almost like we weren't even done. He was just like coming up with like, there's the one for Sunwalker, dude, that you made at the end. That was like, if you guys go look at the visualizer on Spotify or get to the continuous mix part with Sunwalker in it, you'll see this orb that's like turning like this, and there's like hexagons in the orb that are like escalating, and then they have these like levels of glass to them and stuff. It's like the most wild thing I've ever seen. So yeah, I'd say we definitely have a lot of ideas for the future. Yeah, what about you, Thomas?
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely looking forward to like putting new stuff out with Morgan after we, finish up giving this album the due the time that it's due. We worked on this for a while, so we definitely want to appreciate what we did. But we've had many conversations about where do we go from here. Definitely think like exploring some singles we've talked about is like where we can do something a little bit different for maybe like a more of a music video style that would be rad. And then, it's like really, I think when we approach albums and anything like that, it's really how do we take what we already built and push it to another level. And it's I would like to explore the style that we did with like new cameras and all kinds of stuff. Really showing some of the details and showing off another aspect of that same world that we're living inside of, and just help building that package that we're doing to another level, I think.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it like from a macro view, if you think about what this became, like I sent the album to you and to Mousetrap in what I think early December,
Yeah.
and we're here in May. So like, it's super cool to think about like given enough time for number two or like a big single. Like you guys will see if you look up Thomas's stuff. He's done music videos for artists already. He's done like stuff for Atlas that's like goes in deep on like one song and like stuff like that. So I'm really
Yeah.
looking forward to like taking our time and doing it right and figuring out what that looks like. So yeah, I would say we would be working again for sure. And I just can't wait to see what that looks like too. Because if like this came about, this was pretty freestyle, right? So like I can't wait to show people what
and I
that
know
would
for
be.
and I know for me, it's like it's always hard to say like, oh, well, what is the future, or how does that look for us, and visually, how do we think that it's going to be? And it's like honestly, I could take a guess, but it's probably nowhere near what's going to end up happening, just because like me and Morgan, we're constantly working on perfecting our craft at whatever we're doing. And it's, we're always trying to evolve and continually growing. And so, what I think might be a good idea today, in 2 months from now, it's like I'll have new ideas and more things and bigger things that I want to do. And so, I think that's the exciting part about working with musicians for me, is like, how do we push both the music and the art forward and just really make rad experiences that everybody can enjoy and get transported for a tiny period of time to some new place.
Yeah, man. I'm super excited about it. I'm super excited for people to see this continuous mix. Again, guys, thanks. I don't want to take too long here, so thanks for tuning in. Yeah, if you have not yet, go look at iamcyclo's work for Atlas, especially Atlas's most recent album, Out Here With You. It is absolutely incredible. I think you will be shocked at the difference between what he's done with my album that you're about to see and what he did previously with Atlas. I'll just give you a look at like his skill range. Um, so yeah, guys, thanks for hanging out. I am Morgan Madison, and this is the continuous mix of my debut album, Living the Phantasm, with a brilliant visual movie from iamcyclo. So thanks, guys. Enjoy.